point, the upper stage will separate from the core stage and perform a perigee raise maneuver to keep you in a stable orbit. The crew's going to be in a high Earth orbit, checkout orbit. So this is a highly elliptical orbit that just takes them up away from the Earth and then back down close to it. From there, Orion backs away and separates from ICPS, preparing us for manual piloting by the crew of the Orion vehicle, imagining that they are approaching and docking with the upper stage of the rocket.
The crew will have their hands on flying it for the first time, and that'll allow them to see, do we have the pulse size correct? Do we make the pulse size smaller? Do we have enough thrust? Does it have enough control authority to give us the rates and the movement that we need to in the vehicle when we need it?
We need to really understand how Orion's going to perform in order such that we can dock it on future missions. We're going to fly in formation for a good 2 hours to ensure that we can do the checkouts to really understand the way this vehicle is going to operate. As we do ascent and as we go through our ProcSops demo, it's going to be a long day for the crew, it's going to be a long day for us on the ground.
Once we convince ourselves that the systems are solid, we will engage the Orion main engine, and that will commit us to what we call translunar injection.
The translunar injection burn is the big burn that puts us on the path to the moon. For that flyby out to the moon, we're doing what we call a free return trajectory. The idea there is that without doing any more major burns, you can just coast, and the gravity of the moon will redirect Orion and bring it back to Earth safely.
Hey, Apollo 13, Houston, you have a go for
We have done a free return only one time, and that was during Apollo 13. We have designed deliberately to do a free return on this particular mission because, again, our risk tolerance, our willingness to take risks with the vehicle with the crew on board is much, much lower for a crewed test flight.
The next 3 days are spent in transit, and so the crew has activities to, again, continue to check out the systems on the Orion that we weren't able to get to in the first day. We need to go through checking out the radiation shelter, that all of our stowage is in the right spot. We need to check out the cabin to ensure that we can depress it to be able to dock within HLS in the future. Then we're going to fly around the moon.
You'll fly by the moon at about flight day 5. You'll be between 2,900 and 7,900 nautical miles from the lunar surface.
That'll be the first time we'll have 4 crew members being able to share the experience of seeing the far side of the moon together. They'll be the most separated from Earth than any 4 humans could possibly be at that point.
We're going to turn the spacecraft so that you have the best view of anybody of the moon in 50 years. We want to ensure that we're getting the videos of the moon that all of us back here on Earth want to see, and ensuring that all of our systems work on the far side of the moon as well, the way we expect. Once the crew flies past the moon, they'll begin the 3-day journey home, where they'll again begin to do some checkouts, including trying to take the cabin down to a lower pressure, which is needed for future flights. Finally, as they get closer to Earth, they're going to prepare for re-entry. We have to configure the cockpit, do our final targeting, final burns, get the crew in their suits, get them in their seats, and then they'll get into the re-entry sequence.
The back half of the crew module has the heat shield, which is covered right up until just before what we call entry interface, when you're re-entering the atmosphere, at which point the crew module separates from the service module, puts the heat shield towards the Earth, and then begins its entry.
The way Orion enters the Earth's atmosphere, it's a capsule shape, and when that capsule engages with the atmosphere, it hits at a tremendous speed. The speeds that we're enduring produce temperatures as hot as 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is close to the surface of the sun. The way we protect and absorb that energy is we build a heat shield. That heat shield serves as a function to transfer it and absorb that energy so that, ultimately we can come down gently under chutes.
That 19-ish minutes is the most critical of the flight. That heat shield has to work, the guidance has to put them in the right spot, and if we're anywhere as close as we were on Artemis I, we're going to drop that capsule within a couple miles of the landing ship.
Splashdown.
We're going to land off the coast of San Diego in the Pacific Ocean, and we're going to test out in real space in real time the recovery of crew from the capsule. So all of these are new things that we haven't had to do before in a long time.
They'll be recovered by our recovery forces, and we'll see their smiling faces. That's the mission. That's Artemis II.
We learned a ton on Artemis I. A lot of just how the vehicle works and how to fly it, especially from our perspective.
When SLS cleared the tower at Pad B, we put Orion exactly where it needed to be. The upper stage conducted a perfect burn. Orion spent an incredible retrograde orbit around the moon, achieving a distance further than any spacecraft designed to carry humans had ever been. And when it came back to Earth, it performed the first ever skip re-entry of a vehicle.
For Artemis I, the #1 priority mission objective was a test of the heat shield on Orion for lunar return.
Orion conducted the final major maneuver of its mission, a return trajectory correction burn of its thrusters to further fine-tune its path toward its splashdown site in the Pacific.
One of the biggest learnings we had from Artemis I was how the thermal protection system was able to perform during reentry. We looked at the heat shield, and there were little chunks of that char that were missing. And we didn't really understand that, and we thought that wasn't predicted.
What happened is some of the heat shield material started to break off, and that we think could happen a little bit, but you don't want it to happen too much.
Our decision has been made first around safety on the heat shield, as we understand and mitigate the risks that come with spaceflight.
Sometimes in space, delays are agonizing, and slowing down is agonizing, and it's not what we like to do. But from the crew perspective, the thing that we most asked our leadership for after Artemis I was root cause of the ablation of the heat shield. We had an independent review team with a lot of outside experts and internal experts to look at this. So we really appreciate the willingness to take the risk to actually slow down and understand root cause, determine the path forward, corrective action for Artemis II and Artemis III, so that when Victor, Christina, Jeremy, and I launch and land after a successful Artemis II, we will look to Artemis III to carry the torch forward and to put humans back on the moon, and that is really our ultimate objective.
Had the crew been on Artemis I in the Orion heat shield, they would have been safe. This was certainly an area that we knew we wanted to test out. One reason why, of course, there were no crew on Artemis I, so we could test out that heat shield. But we wanted to make sure we understood that problem. And we did an enormous number of tests to confirm that under specific conditions, yes, we can fly it safely. But in the future, we want to take this learning and not only apply it to safely flying Artemis II, but to changing how we design and build the heat shield for the Artemis III and beyond. This is what we do. We are ready for it. This is how we work. This is how we learn.
It will be a 10-day journey, going 500,000 miles, continuing to test out every bit of Orion, going around the far side of the moon, heading home through the Earth's atmosphere at over 25,000 miles per hour and splashing down in the Pacific.
The crew's going to have a horizon, they have a moon, so I feel pretty good about pressing into this opportunity.
I think NASA's at its best when it has big ideas and bold exploration. That's when the finest comes out of NASA. That's when the finest comes out of America. Their story is made up of the success of this institution that makes this country so proud.
For Orion, success means...
Mic check, mic check. How's the mic level sound? How's everyone doing?
Ready for these Artemis missions.
We want to continue to explore. We want to continue to learn. We want to go beyond. We want to go even further. And through the success of this particular mission of Artemis II will help spur us on for the additional exploration and discoveries that are out there for us to find.
Our destiny is always to go and see what's further and what's next.
It's our generation's opportunity to have our own literal moonshot.
When we focus on one thing and we focus on it together, we can achieve anything.
It's the lesson that we can do more together than we can as individuals. It's a new beginning. It's a rebirth of human exploration.
The question is no longer if we're going to return to the moon or reach Mars. It's a matter of when.
It starts with one flight, one crew, Artemis II.
We all have batons, relay race batons, and they are there as a symbol of coming back from Artemis II and handing those batons to Artemis III and saying, it's your turn, go. That is what we live for. We are ready.
And liftoff of Artemis I.
Artemis I was incredible. It was an iconic mission.
I was able to watch the launch of Artemis I, and I'll never forget, I just turned into a small child, and I just was screaming at the rocket for about 30 seconds.
That is our generation, the Artemis generation, that defines the starting point of our exploration future.
Next thing is getting ready to fly the crew on Artemis II.
This mission paves the way for sustained missions on the moon and then Mars.
We've got spaceflight vehicles that are down at the Kennedy Space Center that are being built and integrated. We've got components of the rocket that are being assembled.
We have international partners. We have commercial partners and industry partners.
We've got the designs ready to go, how we're building up the operations.
It's real. The team is ready to go.
4 names, 4 explorers, answering the call to once more rocket away from Earth and chart a course around the moon.
This is the mission of Artemis II.
Never before had man traveled so far, so fast, or looked so closely upon another celestial body.
Apollo was so amazing because we didn't know we could do it. The Apollo generation showed what was possible.
This is really interesting because it's almost as though the first time didn't happen. They're acting like this is the first time anything like this has ever been done. But no, this is not a flight to Mars. This is actually them. They're just going to be circling the moon, it sounds like, and collecting data for possible future missions to, put bases and things there. And I don't know. It's kind of interesting. It's more of a recon mission. But the last Artemis mission, the first one, did not have people. So this one is kind of historic from that point of view. There's going to be 4 crew aboard. And it looks like it's about 10 days. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, I'll be in and out. The official kickoff for the launch and everything, I think, starts at the end of this countdown. So in about an hour and 20 minutes, they'll start their official mission prep and all that kind of stuff. They do the debriefing and everything else. And then I think closer to, like it says on the screen, somewhere around that 5:24, maybe between 5:20 and 5:30 p.m. Central or 6:30 p.m. Eastern is when they're estimated to actually launch. So we'll see what happens.
Because it instructs us on how we're going to get to Mars. This is a generation-defining effort.
My name's Jeff Radigan. I'm the lead flight director for Artemis II. Here in Mission Control, I direct the operations of the spacecraft and communicate with the crew on board in order to have a successful mission of the first mission back to lunar space in over 50 years. We want to get back out to lunar space. We want to fly around the moon. And so to be a part of that is just very meaningful to me. It's something I get excited about when I wake up in the morning. It really is the next step in space exploration.
PC, go. Got him. So, Auto, go. Prop, go. GMC, go. Max,
this room has a lot of historical significance. We originally flew the space shuttle out of here, and we're looking forward to flying Artemis II out of this room here in the not too distant future.
Once the vehicle clears the tower, control of the spacecraft is handed over to Mission Control Houston. At that point, the team in Mission Control, led by the ascent flight director, will take over. It's a very distributed team. Think of it as a big pyramid. At the top of it sits the flight director, but around him are specialists in every system on Orion. They'll have teams in the front room that are working with the flight director. They'll have teams in the back room that are supporting the front room operators to make sure that they're specialists in all of their systems, just in case we have a problem that we haven't seen. And by the way, in my 20 years of human spaceflight experience, I guarantee you we're going to have a problem that we haven't seen.
My name is Natasha P. I'm a flight dynamics officer for Artemis II. We are trajectory specialists when it comes to Orion. Really, my job is to know where your spaceship is and where it's going. And if we need to come home for some reason, come home early, or we get off track, our job is to figure out how to do that. This mission is fundamentally different from a mission you might do in low Earth orbit in a lot of ways. But one of them is that we're looking to rendezvous with the moon. Every minute you wait to launch, the moon is moving. So in order to rendezvous with it efficiently, we have to change the inclination of our orbit to make sure we line up with the moon. In a month, you get about 14 days of a launch period. Our team all hunkers down, and for every day, we look at the open and close of the window and come up with a trajectory end to end, from liftoff all the way through splashdown.
that launch ops is like a team sport. It's certainly you have to produce on game day, but that the preparation for a championship begins in the off season. We've made some significant upgrades since Artemis I, and that includes not just the software that you see out here running on the consoles, but it's also in our model and simulation environment. The big difference between Artemis I and Artemis II is, of course, the crew. And it's the systems, the new systems that are specifically in place to support a crewed flight. And so we have new launch commit criteria, we have changes to our procedures, changes to our timelines, and we want to make sure that we've gone through those time and time again so that when launch day rolls around, we're ready for anything that the hardware may throw at us.
We woke up this morning, went through medical checks, had breakfast as a crew while Charlie and her team were getting the simulated vehicle ready for launch day. We got in our crew transfer vehicles, our CTVs. We came out to the pad. We went up 2 elevators to the 274-foot level, and we met there, our White Room closeout team. So it was a great end-to-end run-through of what we will do when we get on this vehicle and head to the moon.
There are no shortcuts. I mean, you have to do it all because on launch day, that is game day. And it is in all of our work together that gets us to a successful T0 and a safe and successful mission.
Hey, Sam.
What's going on?
Not much.
Long time no see.
I'm gonna see.
The seriousness of what it takes to take the risk with humans in and of itself creates enough of a pressure for the entire organization, enough of a concern, enough of a sense of rigor. Everything goes up a notch.
We have to have an atmosphere to breathe, a temperature to be able to control, to be able to take out the carbon dioxide, the humidity that's in the air, feed the crew, deal with a small environment, proving that we can fly by the moon and come back and have a safe reentry.
There's an extra element when you have humans on board, the nuances by which the system operates, the understanding of what it is to live in this crew module that we have. Artemis II is also another flight test of the other systems that are required to enable human space exploration. That is life support system, that is displays, that is the controllers, that stick that you need to fly a spacecraft. All those pieces were not part of Artemis I, but are really key for Artemis II, and the crew will need that capability to go forward to do human space exploration.
When you go to the moon, you're 250,000 miles away, and there's no choice. It takes time to get home. Everything we check, everything we try and make sure we understand, we double, we triple, we quadruple check because we want to make sure we get it right.
The mission will prove the Orion spacecraft is ready to keep astronauts alive in deep space and allow the crew and ground teams to practice operations essential to the success of future missions.
This top portion is the crew module. It's the pressurized area where the crew sits. The bottom portion here, with the solar arrays and the engines, primary engines, is what's called the service module.
The European Service Module, or ESM, will provide electricity, water and air to NASA's Orion crew capsule, as well as maintaining temperature for life support.
It's been a fabulous partnership with our ESA partners. The agency made a decision a long time ago that we want to do lunar exploration as a global partnership.
Now that we're having crew, that's the new element for Artemis II and onwards. We will really go into the testing of the life support systems and try to figure out how is that behaving with the astronaut in the loop, how is the CO2 scrubbing working on the crew module side, how are we providing the oxygen to the astronauts and the water.
That environmental control system is so complicated. It's a series of chemical and mechanical and electrical engineering problems that all have to come together. That spacecraft has to basically be a mini Earth. And that Earth is basically driven by the elements of that life support system.
We also have crew interfaces with the crew piloting the vehicle. Artemis I was uncrewed, and so we're going to go do a checkout right at the beginning of the mission while we're in an Earth orbit to be able to ensure that the crew is able to successfully pilot the vehicle.
We're not just testing the systems in Orion. One of the key things we really want to do is we're going to do science.
When we think about Artemis II science, there are really 3 big areas that we're studying. One is understanding the space environment. The second is understanding how that environment interacts with life and humans.
Replenish mode for our liquid hydrogen tanks on board the SLS core stage and the interim cryogenic propulsion stage. These are the 2 stages on the SLS rocket. Now, replenish mode means that we have finished loading hydrogen on board both of these rockets. That means they are at 100% level. And teams are just constantly replenishing the tanks to make sure that they stay at 100%. Since, as throughout the countdown, that liquid propellant will start boiling off as it starts warming up, and it will then be vented out and released from the rocket, which you can see there on your screen. Now, on the liquid oxygen side, teams are now in topping phase for the core stage liquid oxygen tank. Topping is the in-between state of fast fill and replenish mode. Fast fill is where we spend the most of the time loading propellants. We load it at a much faster rate. Then once we reach a certain point, we will transition into topping to finish loading the tank to 100%. That is now where we are currently at in the core stage liquid oxygen tank. And following topping, we then transition into replenish. So we're in core stage liquid oxygen topping. We're in topping for the core stage liquid oxygen tank. And we are in replenish mode for both tanks on the liquid hydrogen, on the core stage and the upper stage. Now, meanwhile, on the liquid oxygen tank on the upper stage, teams just reported that they have now started chill down for that upper stage tank. This is the first step that is needed before we actually start flowing and loading that propellant on board. The reason this is done is to chill down the systems in line so they are ready to receive those super cold temperatures and not cause any potential damage to the hardware. For reference, oxygen needs to be negative 297 degrees Fahrenheit to be in a liquid state, and hydrogen, negative 423 degrees Fahrenheit. So very, very cold temperatures that the rocket is dealing with right now. Now again, we are underway for the Artemis II mission. This is the second Artemis mission in NASA's Artemis program. Artemis I was an uncrewed test flight. Artemis II will be the first crewed test flight. This will be the first time we send astronauts on board our Orion spacecraft. We'll be sending our commander Reed Wiseman, our pilot Victor Glover, and mission specialists Christina Cook and Jeremy Hansen on a 10-day mission around the moon. Now, from the rocket side, there aren't that many changes from Artemis I to Artemis II. Most of the major sections of SLS really remain unchanged. Some of the differences are more in the details to really just provide our astronauts with a better ride in space. Some of those include some optical targets that are now on the upper stage as visual cues during the proximity operation demonstration. This will be a test for the astronauts to practice maneuvering Orion and practice approaching the upper stage while it's in a high Earth orbit. Another improvement for SLS was an improved navigation system. Also, communications capability between the ground stations and the U.S. Space Force Space Launch Delta 45, which controls the eastern range. That is responsible for kind of helping dictate when we are allowed to launch here off the Space Coast in Florida. Now, all of the 4 tanks on the upper stage and the core stage, they feed the engines that are down below. At liftoff, the 4 RS-25 engines will operate for the first 8 minutes during flight. The 2 solid rocket boosters that are on either side, those operate for only 2 minutes, and they provide 75% of the power at liftoff. So to quickly recap, we are in replenish for our both liquid hydrogen tanks. We entered topping for the liquid oxygen tank on the core stage. That means very, very soon we'll be in replenish mode for that tank as well. And we are in our chill down operations for the liquid oxygen tank on the upper stage. Pretty soon we will be entering fast fill. I'll report
its entry.
The way Orion enters the Earth's atmosphere, it's a capsule shape, and when that capsule engages with the atmosphere, it hits at a tremendous speed. The speeds that we're enduring produce temperatures as hot as 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is close to the surface of the sun. The way we protect and absorb that energy is we build a heat shield. That heat shield serves as a function to transfer and absorb that energy so that, ultimately we can come down gently under chutes.
That 19-ish minutes is the most critical of the flight. That heat shield has to work, the guidance has to put them in the right spot, and if we're anywhere as close as we were on Artemis I, we're going to drop that capsule within a couple miles of the landing ship.
Splashdown.
We're going to land off the coast of San Diego in the Pacific Ocean, and we're going to test out in real space in real time the recovery of crew from the capsule. So all of these are new things that we haven't had to do before in a long time.
They'll be recovered by our recovery forces, and we'll see their smiling faces. That's the mission. That's Artemis II.
We learned a ton on Artemis I. A lot of just how the vehicle works and how to fly it, especially from our perspective.
When SLS cleared the tower at Pad B, we put Orion exactly where it needed to be. The upper stage conducted a perfect burn. Orion spent an incredible retrograde orbit around the moon, achieving a distance further than any spacecraft designed to carry humans had ever been. And when it came back to Earth, it performed the first ever skip re-entry of a vehicle.
For Artemis I, the #1 priority mission objective was a test of the heat shield on Orion for lunar return.
Orion conducted the final major maneuver of its mission, a return trajectory correction burn of its thrusters to further fine-tune its path toward its splashdown site in the Pacific.
One of the biggest learnings we had from Artemis I was how the thermal protection system was able to perform during reentry. We looked at the heat shield, and there were little chunks of that char that were missing. And we didn't really understand that, and we thought that wasn't predicted.
What happened is some of the heat shield material started to break off, and that we think could happen a little bit, but you don't want to happen too much.
Our decision has been made first around safety on the heat shield, as we understand and mitigate the risks that come with spaceflight.
Sometimes in space, delays are agonizing, and slowing down is agonizing, and it's not what we like to do. But from the crew perspective, the thing that we most asked our leadership for after Artemis I was root cause of the ablation of the heat shield. We had an independent review team with a lot of outside experts and internal experts to look at this. So we really appreciate the willingness to take the risk to actually slow down and understand root cause, determine the path forward, corrective action for Artemis II and Artemis III, so that when Victor, Christina, Jeremy, and I launch and land after a successful Artemis II, we will look to Artemis III to carry the torch forward and to put humans back on the moon, and that is really our ultimate objective.
Had the crew been on Artemis I in the Orion heat shield, they would have been safe. This was certainly an area that we knew we wanted to test out. One reason why, of course, there were no crew on Artemis I, so we could test out that heat shield. But we wanted to make sure we understood that problem. And we did an enormous number of tests to confirm that under specific conditions, yes, we can fly it safely. But in the future, we want to take this learning and not only apply it to safely flying Artemis II, but to changing how we design and build the heat shield for the Artemis III and beyond. This is what we do. We are ready for it. This is how we work. This is how we learn.
It will be a 10-day journey, going 500,000 miles, continuing to test out every bit of Orion, going around the far side of the moon, heading home through the Earth's atmosphere at over 25,000 miles per hour and splashing down in the Pacific.
The crew's going to have a horizon, they have a moon, so I feel pretty good about pressing into this opportunity.
I think NASA's at its best when it has big ideas and bold exploration. That's when the finest comes out of NASA. That's when the finest comes out of America. Their story is made up of the success of this institution that makes this country so proud.
For Orion, success means first, we bring the crew home. Second, we demonstrate what we know already is a robust spacecraft that's ready for these Artemis missions.
Also into its replenish mode as well. The liquid oxygen tank on the upper stage, meanwhile, is now in fast fill. So that means all 4 tanks are now receiving propellant. Following fast fill on the liquid oxygen tank for the upper stage, teams will perform that vent and relief test that they also did for the liquid hydrogen side on the upper stage. This test is again just to test the relief capabilities to make sure that the upper stage can handle the pressure that will be introduced at liftoff and during launch. Following that, it will then enter topping and will then go to replenish mode as well. Once we are in replenish mode for all tanks, that'll be the signal to the launch team to tell our astronauts that they are ready to start heading out to the launch pad and get on board their Orion spacecraft. Now, Artemis II is a test flight, and it is NASA's first Artemis crewed mission. That means this will be the first time that our astronauts, our Commander Reed Wiseman, pilot Victor Glover, and mission specialists Christina Cook and Jeremy Hansen, they will be the first to experience launch and flight atop SLS. The rocket hits a maximum speed of 22,670 miles per hour. And our astronauts will get to experience the entire ride. So to quickly recap, we are in replenish mode for both liquid hydrogen tanks. We are in topping, meaning we are finishing up loading liquid oxygen on the core stage. That is the first stage of the rocket. And we are in fast fill for the liquid oxygen tank on our second stage, or that interim cryogenic propulsion stage. I'll report out once we have also entered replenish mode for the core stage liquid oxygen tank.
To return to the moon. And as we look towards Mars, the moon is going to be an important staging area for us to learn quite a bit. The longest we were ever on the moon as humans was 72 hours. We have a lot to learn yet.
And if we leave the moon in Taurus literal, we leave as we came, and God willing, as we shall return.
The Artemis campaign is really a set of test flights. We haven't been to the moon in over 50 years, and so there's a lot of new systems that we need to test out. We're going to a new part of the moon, the South Pole, that we've never been to before with crew. The Artemis II mission is going to take the next step in our flight test campaign. We're going to focus on what...
So really quick in chat, put a 1 if you believe we went to the moon the first time. Put a 2 if you think it was all some big hoax. Because I see a lot of you guys talking about it. So 1 if we went, 2 if it was fake.
Here in Mission Control, I direct the operations of the spacecraft and communicate with the crew on board in order to have a successful mission of a first mission back to lunar space in over 50 years. We want to get back out to lunar space. We want to fly around the moon. And so to be a part of that is just very meaningful to me. It's something I get excited about when I wake up in the morning. It really is the next step in space exploration.
PC, go. Got it. So, auto, go. Rob, go.
This room has a lot of historical significance. We originally flew the space shuttle out of here, and we're looking forward to flying Artemis II out of this room here in the not too distant future.
Once the vehicle clears the tower.
If for whatever reason, if this stream stops or they cut the stream to something else, I have multiple different angles going on and multiple sources. But if something does happen to the stream, feel free to email me. The email's down in the description and also in the ticker at the bottom. But we're going to head out. I have to run out with my kids here real quick. I just want to make sure I had this up and ready to go. And I'll be back closer to probably an hour or two before lunchtime, something like that. Estimated launch is about 5:30 Central or 6:30 Eastern. So I think that's their best window as far as weather and all that stuff goes. But there's also I think it's a 1.5 X flare that's going on right now as well. So a lot of people are saying it's maybe not the best decision to launch right now. But we'll see what happens. And obviously they're competing with Elon Musk. So this might be their, this might be their big attempt to be relevant again. So hopefully it goes well for them. But like I said, I'll be in and out, and then I'll definitely be here before launch. So I will talk to you guys a little bit later on.
End to end, from liftoff all the way through splashdown.
I often talk about that launch ops is like a team sport. It's certainly you have to produce on game day, but that the preparation for a championship begins in the off season. We've made some significant upgrades since Artemis I, and that includes not just the software that you see out here running on the consoles, but it's also in our model and simulation environment. The big difference between Artemis I and Artemis II is, of course, the crew. And it's the systems, the new systems that are specifically in place to support a crewed flight. And so we have new launch commit criteria, we have changes to our procedures, changes to our timelines, and we want to make sure that we've gone through those time and time again so that when launch day rolls around, we're ready for anything that the hardware may throw at us.
We woke up this morning, went through medical checks, had breakfast as a crew while Charlie and her team were getting the simulated vehicle ready for launch day. We got in our crew transfer vehicles, our CTVs, we came out to the pad. We went up 2 elevators to the 274-foot level, and we met there, our White Room closeout team. So it was a great end-to-end run-through of what we will do when we get on this vehicle and head to the moon.
There are no shortcuts. I mean, you have to do it all because on launch day, that is game day. And it is in all of our work together that gets us to a successful T0 and a safe and successful mission.
Hey, Sam. What's going on? Not much. Long time no see. I'm gonna see.
The seriousness of what it takes to take the risk with humans in and of itself creates enough of a pressure for the entire organization, enough of a concern, enough of a sense of rigor. Everything goes up a notch.
We have to have an atmosphere to breathe, a temperature to be able to control, to be able to take out the carbon dioxide and humidity that's in the air, feed the crew, deal with a small environment, proving that we can fly by the moon and come back and have a safe reentry.
There's an extra element when you have humans on board, the nuances by which the system operates, the understanding of what it is to live in this crew module that we have. Artemis II is also another flight test of the other systems that are required to enable human space exploration. That is life support system, that is displays, that is the controllers, that stick that you need to fly a spacecraft. All those pieces were not part of Artemis I, but are really key for Artemis II, and the crew will need that capability to go forward to do human space exploration.
When you go to the moon, you're 250,000 miles away, and there's no choice. It takes time to get home. Everything we check, everything we try and make sure we understand, we double, we triple, we quadruple check because we want to make sure we get it right.
The mission will prove the Orion spacecraft is ready to keep astronauts alive in deep space and allow the crew and ground teams to practice operations essential to the success of future missions.
This top portion is the crew module. It's the pressurized area where the crew sits. The bottom portion here, with the solar arrays and the engines, primary engines, is what's called the service module.
The European Service Module, or ESM, will provide electricity, water and air to NASA's Orion crew capsule, as well as maintaining temperature for life support.
It's been a fabulous partnership with our ESA partners. The agency made a decision a long time ago that we want to do lunar exploration as a global partnership.
Now that we're having crew, that's the new element for Artemis II and onwards. We will really go into the testing of the life support systems and try to figure out how is that behaving with the astronaut in the loop, how is the CO2 scrubbing working on the crew module side, how are we providing the oxygen to the astronauts and the water.
That environmental control system is so complicated. It's a series of chemical and mechanical and electrical engineering problems that all have to come together. That spacecraft has to basically be a mini Earth, and that Earth is basically driven by the elements of that life support system.
We also have crew interfaces with the crew piloting the vehicle. Artemis I was uncrewed, and so we're going to go do a checkout right at the beginning of the mission while we're in an Earth orbit to be able to ensure that the crew is able to successfully pilot the vehicle.
We're not just testing the systems in Orion. One of the key things we really want to do is we're going to do science.
When we think about Artemis II science, there are really three big areas that we're studying. One is understanding the space environment. The second is understanding how that environment interacts with life and humans and the systems. And then the third is looking at the moon itself from a vantage point where humans haven't looked for over 50 years.
They're going to be describing what they see. They'll see things that human beings have never seen before. They'll be describing, observing, and documenting what they see for the scientists back home.
They've done a significant amount of training in the field here on Earth, learning about geology and planetary scale processes. They'll be looking for the evidence of those processes from orbit and describing to us anything unique that we maybe haven't been able to really sense with orbiters and robotic measurements.
We're also going to do human research on the crew members themselves. We haven't had data sets for over 50 years on how the physiology of the crew themselves adapt to the radiation environment, to the microgravity environment so far away from Earth.
When you think about Artemis II, we've never had humans get on top of an SLS rocket. And when that rocket launches, 8.8 million pounds of thrust are going to defeat gravity for a 5.8 million pound vehicle. So they're going to feel vibrations and hear sounds that no humans have ever experienced.
If you want to be an astronaut, that's the thing you've been waiting for your whole life. Riding the elevator up the rocket, climbing in that capsule, very surreal. I often say that the only reason anybody actually gets on a rocket is because it'd be too embarrassing to turn around and run away from the rocket. Once the fire starts coming and the rocket starts vibrating and you lift off, it's a completely different experience.
When you put crew on a rocket, it's no longer a test flight. This one needs to perform and will perform as good or better than the first one did. No doubt about it.
Artemis II begins with launch from Kennedy Space Center.
Getting them through that 8.5 minutes to get them to escape Earth will be first big milestone.
First, you'll do about 2 minutes of flight with the boosters. The boosters will separate, leaving you on just the core stage all the way through about 8 minutes into the mission. At that point, the upper stage will separate from the core stage and perform a perigee raise maneuver to keep you in a stable orbit. The crew's going to be in a high Earth orbit, checkout orbit. So this is a highly elliptical orbit that just takes them up away from the Earth and then back down close to it. From there, Orion backs away and separates from ICPS, preparing us for manual piloting by the crew of the Orion vehicle, imagining that they are approaching and docking with the upper stage of the rocket.
The crew will have their hands on flying it for the first time, and that allow them to see, do we have the pulse size correct? Do we make the pulse size smaller? Do we have enough thrust? Does it have enough control authority to give us the rates and the movement that we need to in the vehicle when we need it?
We need to really understand how Orion's going to perform in order such that we can dock it on future missions. We're going to fly in formation for a good 2 hours to ensure that we can do the checkouts to really understand the way this vehicle is going to operate. As we do ascent and as we go through our ProxOps demo, it's going to be a long day for the crew, it's going to be a long day for us on the ground.
Once we convince ourselves that the systems are solid, we will engage the Orion main engine, and that will commit us to what we call translunar injection.
The translunar injection burn is the big burn that puts us on the path to the moon. For that flyby out to the moon, we're doing what we call a free return trajectory. The idea there is that without doing any more major burns, you can just coast, and the gravity of the moon will redirect Orion and bring it back to Earth safely.
Hey, Apollo 13, Houston, you have a go for
We have done a free return only one time, and that was during Apollo 13. We have designed deliberately to do a free return on this particular mission because, again, our risk tolerance, our willingness to take risks with the vehicle with the crew on board is much, much lower for a crewed test flight.
The next 3 days are spent in transit, and so the crew has activities to, again, continue to check out the systems on the Orion that we weren't able to get to in the first day. We need to go through checking out the radiation shelter, that all of our stowage is in the right spot. We need to check out the cabin to ensure that we can depress it to be able to dock within HLS in the future. Then we're going to fly around the moon.
You'll fly by the moon at about flight day 5. You'll be between 2,900 and 7,900 nautical miles from the lunar surface.
That'll be the first time we'll have 4 crew members being able to share the experience of seeing the far side of the moon together. They'll be the most separated from Earth than any 4 humans could possibly be at that point.
We're going to turn the spacecraft so that you have the best view of anybody of the moon in 50 years. We want to ensure that we're getting the videos of the moon that all of us back here on Earth want to see, and ensuring that all of our systems work on the far side of the moon as well, the way we expect. Once the crew flies past the moon, they'll begin the 3-day journey home, where they'll again begin to do some checkouts, including trying to take the cabin down to a lower pressure, which is needed for future flights. Finally, as they get closer to Earth, they're going to prepare for re-entry. We have to configure the cockpit, do our final targeting, final burns, get the crew in their suits, get them in their seats, and then they'll get into the re-entry sequence.
The back half of the crew module has the heat shield, which is covered right up until just before what we call entry interface, when you're re-entering the atmosphere, at which point the crew module separates from the service module, puts the heat shield towards the Earth, and then begins its entry.
The way Orion enters the Earth's atmosphere, it's a capsule shape, and when that capsule engages with the atmosphere, it hits at a tremendous speed. The speeds that we're enduring produce temperatures as hot as 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is close to the surface of the sun. The way we protect and absorb that energy is we build a heat shield. That heat shield serves as a function to transfer it and absorb that energy so that, ultimately we can come down gently under
mission that sends astronauts on board SLS and Orion. You can see a photo on your screen there of our Artemis II crew. We have our commander, Reed Wiseman, on the right-hand side. Then we have our 2 mission specialists in the middle, Christina Cook, and then Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen. All the way on the left is our pilot, Victor Glover. All 4 of them woke up not too long ago at around 9:25 a.m. this morning. Not a terrible wake-up call. In that time, they've been getting ready, having breakfast, getting some briefings. And they'll get one more briefing. It's the flight crew weather brief, where they'll get a status on where we are in the countdown, what the current forecast looks like. Following that brief, they will then start their suit-up operations before they go out to the launch pad and board their spacecraft. And teams did report that we have now entered replenish mode for the core stage liquid oxygen tank. So we are now in replenish for both liquid hydrogen tanks on the core stage and the upper stage. And we are also in replenish mode for the core stage liquid oxygen tank. On the upper stage liquid oxygen tank, meanwhile, we are still in fast fill. And I'll report out once then we transition from fast fill onto the next step, which will again be that Benton relief test. This is pressurizing the upper stage tanks with heliums to test the relief capabilities of the tank pressure to make sure that it can handle that capability during flight. Following that test, teams will then start topping on the liquid oxygen tank, and will then, after topping, will then transition into replenish mode as well. I'll report out when that's underway.
So that when Victor, Christina, Jeremy, and I launch and land after a successful Artemis II, we will look to Artemis III to carry the torch forward and to put humans back on the moon, and that is really our ultimate objective.
Had the crew been on Artemis I in the Orion heat shield, they would have been safe. This was certainly an area that we knew we wanted to test out. One reason why, of course, there were no crew on Artemis I, so we could test out that heat shield. But we wanted to make sure we understood that problem, and we did.
This is Artemis Launch Control. We are currently 6 hours and 8 minutes and counting from the opening of today's launch window for the Artemis II mission. Now, the launch window opens at 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time this evening, and teams do have a 2-hour launch window, which means that they have 2 hours in which they can try to launch the SLS, or the Space Launch System rocket, and Orion spacecraft that will send NASA astronauts Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen on a 10-day mission around the moon and back. Now, the launch team is currently in the process of loading cryogenic or super cold liquid propellant onto the SLS rocket. The propellants that are used to power SLS are liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. We are currently in our replenish phase for both liquid hydrogen tanks on the 2 phases of the on the 2 stages of the rocket. That is both the core stage and the interim cryogenic propulsion stage. Replenish mode just basically means that now these tanks are at 100% level, and teams are going to constantly be replenishing them as they start to warm up and boil off. You can see some of that gas that's being vented off the rocket there. That's normal. Teams totally expect to see that. And because of that, we have then a replenish valve to constantly be replenishing the tank with that liquid propellant. So we make sure that we are 100% level and we're not losing any propellants in the tank. The reason that you see some of that venting happening is because as we get throughout the countdown and the temperatures start to rise, that liquid propellant will become a gas, and so it'll start boiling off and then it'll vent outside the rocket. Hence the need for a replenish valve. So we are in replenish for both liquid hydrogen tanks. We are also in replenish for the core stage liquid oxygen tank. And we are in fast fill for the upper stage, or that interim cryogenic propulsion stage, liquid oxygen tank. Now, fast fill is the main portion of our propellant loading operations, where teams are actively loading that propellant at a much faster rate. Now, following fast fill, teams transition into what is called topping. As the name suggests, it just means to top off the tanks. And then following topping, we enter what is replenish. So once we are at replenish for the liquid oxygen tank on the interim cryogenic propulsion stage, we're going to enter what is called all stages in replenish. This means that all 4 tanks on the SLS rocket are fully fueled, and our astronauts are ready then to go and head out to the launch pad when they get the go from our launch director, Charlie Blackwell Thompson. Now, coming up shortly, our astronauts will be joining in on a flight crew weather brief with our launch director, as well as with the flight director in Houston and the launch weather officer. They'll provide a quick status on how the forecast looks for the rest of today's countdown, as well as where we currently are in our countdown operations. A little earlier, the launch weather officer did let our launch director know that we might get some showers in about 2 hours. However, there is no lightning threat, and they will plan on discussing this again during the flight crew weather brief. Currently, teams are forecasting 80% go for weather conditions during that 2-hour launch window. So again, to quickly recap, we are in replenish mode for both liquid hydrogen tanks. We are also in replenish mode on the liquid oxygen tank on the core stage. That is the first stage of the SLS rocket. And we're in fast fill for the liquid oxygen tank on the upper stage. I'll report out when we have transitions from fast fill and onto topping. This is Artemis Launch Control. We are currently 5 hours and 42 minutes and counting from the opening of today's launch window for the Artemis II mission. That launch window officially opens at 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time, and teams do have a 2-hour launch window, which means that they have additional opportunities if they don't meet the beginning of that window. Now joining me is Artemis Launch Director Charlie Blackwell-Thompson. Charlie, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Oh, you're more than welcome. It's great to be here, Tony.
It sure is. Now, we know that you just conducted a flight crew weather brief with our astronauts as well as teams and mission control and our launch weather officer. Do you mind providing us kind of how that went and what we can expect?
Yes, the weather brief went really well. What we do during that weather brief is we give the flight crew a summary of where we are in our tanking, what's left, and of course we have our core stage and our upper stage fully loaded with LH2, and we're in replenish, and we are just finishing up our LO2, or liquid oxygen load, into the upper stage. We provided that status along with any non-conformances that the crew might be interested in, and then we went through the weather. And so our weather from our launch weather officer remains at a 80% likelihood of go today and a 20% chance of violation. We are watching some precip that is making its way toward the pad, but we expect that that is going to dissipate as we get closer to the opening of our window. So really good to hear the crew's voices and to talk through a day of launch ops. You know, it's something that we simulate, but there's nothing like the real day.
Absolutely. I can only imagine, and it's great news to hear that we are still 80% go. Those are very, very favorable conditions. Let's hope it stays that way. You mentioned we're getting closer to reaching what is called all stages in stable replenish. That means that we will have all 4 tanks at 100% flight level. Charlie, can you walk us through then what are some of those upcoming milestones once we reach all stages replenish?
Absolutely. So one of the big milestones when you reach stable replenish on all stages is you begin to send the closeout crew into the pad, and so we're just a few minutes away from getting into that, and we'll deploy them to the pad, and they'll start getting ready for the flight crew. And then, of course, shortly after that is the exciting milestone of seeing the crew walk out of the operations and checkout building and make their way to the pad. And that's certainly something that we've been waiting a very long time to see. It's going to be very exciting, I think, certainly for our team. It'll be exciting for our country, and it'll be exciting for people all over the world who are watching our crew head to the pad, knowing that we are just about 5 hours or so from launch.
You couldn't have said it any better. This is very exciting for the entire world. We cannot wait for that moment when we see our astronauts depart their crew quarters and head to the pad. Charlie, thank you so much for taking the chance to speak with us today. We are rooting for you. We're wishing you the best of luck in today's countdown, and we'll let you get back on console.
All right. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate the opportunity to chat with you, and go Artemis.
Go Artemis. All right, so to quickly recap, we are in replenish mode for both liquid hydrogen tanks, and we are getting ready to also hit replenish mode on the liquid oxygen tanks for both of those. We will report out when that is underway. This is Artemis Launch Control. We are currently 5 hours and 37 minutes and counting from the opening of today's launch window for NASA's Artemis II mission. Now, the launch team is currently in the process of loading cryogenic or liquid propellant onto the SLS rocket. You see our launch team there in Firing Room 1, and you actually can see our NASA administrator, Jared Isaacman. He just joined the room to greet our launch director, Charlie Blackwell Thompson, and our assistant launch director, Jeremy Graver. Now, to quickly recap, we started our propellant loading operations at 8:35 a.m. Eastern Time. That was after we had chilled down the core stage systems lines, and after we had been given the go from our launch director to start our tanking operations. So after 8:35, we started again slow fill. A little bit after that, at 9:25, our astronauts got their scheduled wake-up call. Following slow fill on the core stage, we then transitioned into fast fill. Once we were in fast fill for the core stage, we then started our upper stage loading operations. We started first with hydrogen. Started chilling down the liquid hydrogen tank on the upper stage at roughly 9:36 a.m. And then we got into fast fill at 9:51 a.m. Following that, we entered then our topping phase on the core stage liquid hydrogen tank. Topping refers to finishing up that last little bit to get to 100%, and then we transitioned into replenish. We did the same thing for the core stage liquid oxygen tank, as well as for the liquid hydrogen tank on the upper stage. Now all that's left is to enter replenish mode for the liquid oxygen tank on our upper stage, and we will enter what is called all stages replenish. This means that now all 4 tanks will be at 100% level. Once we reach this stage, this will be the signal for our launch team to let our astronauts know that they have the clear to enter the launch pad and go and enter their spacecraft. As a reminder, NASA is providing 24/7 live coverage of this mission. We started this morning at 7:45 a.m. and ran you through our tanking loading operations, and we will continue to do so throughout the rest of today's launch countdown. We will be beginning our live coverage in just a few minutes for that launch, and the rest of our commentators will make sure to take you along through today's countdown. You can see on your screen there how to watch. And as our launch director just recently said when she came on air, let's go Artemis II.
There's an invisible magnetic force field surrounding our planet, protecting us from harmful solar winds that could annihilate Earth. But this protective blanket is also a swirling ring full of deadly radiation. And to leave Earth's atmosphere, astronauts have to pass through it. The Van Allen belts are rings of energetically charged particles that have been captured by Earth's magnetic field. They got their name from this physicist, James Van Allen. Back in the 1950s, Van Allen launched a Raccoon, a rocket lifted by a balloon above the atmosphere, and it detected the first hint of radiation at higher altitudes.
So this video is by Seeker. This is like, 7 years old, but I mean, it's worth going to check out, and some other things similar, but this is what a lot of people are saying is why we can't and haven't gone to the moon and all these different things. So, you know, there's a ton of research and stuff going on with it, but I think there's basically two sides of people. You have the side that are saying that no matter what, we can't go, didn't go, shouldn't go. And then you have other people that are saying, like, it might be possible, but there's some challenges to get there. And then you have other people saying that it's, you know, aliens or demons or whatever. You know, like, especially the demon thing. So I know right now, one of the main things going on is there's a huge race between all the different, like between Russia, China, the US, and who knows who else, to get back to space, supposedly, and also to be the first one to put some kind of base or power station on the moon. That's a huge thing that a lot of people have been talking about. So maybe this is the United States, you know, first attempt to try to get some research done towards that end. And I wouldn't be surprised if shortly we see China and Russia and some other people do similar types of launches and missions. But it looks like we're going to have the live event here shortly, hopefully.
Of the Orion space capsule.
Artemis II will be the first time we put humans on this rocket.
We're going back to the moon because it's the next step in our journey to Mars.
We were always going to the moon.
Pushing ourselves to explore is just core to who we are. That's a part of being a human.
And lift off. We shall return.
Continuing to test out every bit of Orion.
Coming back to Earth, 7 miles a second.
When humanity sets big goals, we can bring together genius from around the world.
You have the best people on planet Earth putting this vehicle together. That's what's up.
To innovate for the benefit of humanity and to inspire the world through discovery.
And here we go.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us live from NASA's Kennedy Space Center, where we are beginning a new chapter in America's human spaceflight story. We are so humbled to have thousands of people here in person to witness this, and the many more watching online from around the world. I'm NASA's Megan Cruz, and this is NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers.
Thanks, Megan. What a historic day to be here.
What a historic day to be here. Obviously, for what we see right behind us here, the SLS rocket and Orion spacecraft on launch pad 39B. Artemis II is a nearly 10-day flight test to prove NASA can safely fly astronauts around the moon before attempting to land on it in just 2 years, hopefully.
Yes, like you said, it's a test flight, so we're going to put humans on this rocket for the first time ever, and we're going to test out the systems on board and hopefully get around the moon.
And why does NASA want to return us to the moon?
And we want to go back for scientific discovery, right? We want to create a permanent presence on the lunar surface. We want to be able to harness some of the volatiles or the resources on the moon in order to get us onto Mars later. So we're going to use the moon as a stepping stone to get to Mars, but also we're going to use the moon to learn so much about Earth and about the creation of the solar system. The moon is this untouched witness mark for the Earth and the solar system.
And what I really love is like all the things that we do to get us to explore our universe, all of that technology, all the jobs created to support that, it all benefits us here on Earth.
Yes, definitely. I mean, getting this rocket into orbit takes, 8.8 million pounds of thrust, right? And it's the people on Earth who do that and who create that, the engineers, the scientists. There are so many people who make this mission happen.
And so if all goes well, this crew could travel farther from Earth than any other humans before them and see parts of the moon no one has ever laid eyes on. And now, speaking of laying eyes, here we are in the suit-up room with the Artemis II crew.
Yes. Looks like the commander's getting his comm cap on, so the communication cap. Looks like Victor's already got his on and the helmet going.
He's just stretching out his wrist a little bit, right?
Yes.
And in charge of liftoff today is Launch Director Charlie Blackwell-Thompson. She and her team are just across the street from us inside of the Launch Control Center. They kicked off continuous around-the-clock operations just before 5 p.m. on Monday and started fueling the rocket about 4 hours ago. They have a 2-hour launch window that opens at 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time, which our clock in the upper left-hand corner is counting down to. And, we just heard from Charlie Blackwell-Thompson in our tanking coverage, which was the broadcast just before this one kicked off. And basically, she said weather is 80% go.
Yes, 80%, we will take that. It's a little windy. There's some clouds building, but we're going to keep an eye on it, and 80% is a good number to keep moving today.
Yeah, and what she said was a wave of showers are moving west, but they should be well past the pad by the time we launch again. Hopefully at 6:24 p.m. today.
Hopefully.
All right, so again, let's head back into that suit-up room. We see Reed Wiseman. He is the commander of the Artemis II crew, and Nicole, he is putting on what you guys are calling the communications cap, the comm cap.
Yes, so it's a little bit for protection of his, of his head there, but also you can see the mic booms, and he's got ear cups there so he can hear, the rocket's loud. So you're going to wear hearing protection, but then we also want to be able to talk to Earth and talk to each other. So they're getting that settled, and then he will put the helmet on over that comm cap. That comm cap will also connect into the suit, which then eventually connects into the capsule. Through an umbilical there, so there's a lot of cords and wires. You can see them tuck in that cord under his chin right now.
And so the suits they're wearing, they're called the Orion Crew Survival Suits, or OX suits. And so they're worn for launch and reentry or during high-risk or emergency situations. And I think a lot of people, especially if they're have been following NASA for all these decades now, they're kind of thinking, hey, these look like the suits that our shuttle astronauts used to wear. There is a lot of resemblance here.
That's true. Yeah, they are very similar. NASA does a great job of leveraging the lessons that we learn from previous missions. So dating all the way back to Apollo, some of our first spaceflight missions, we learned lessons about the suits and how to make them better, and we just continued to carry that through all the way into the Artemis mission.
Time now to introduce you to some of our teams today. We have Gary Jordan at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston. He's going to be inside with the mission control teams, which will take over from Kennedy's launch control team right at liftoff. And then back here at Florida, there's Megan Carter inside Kennedy Space Center's visitor complex, Jasmine Hopkins at a launch viewing location, and then finally Daryl Nail inside the Launch Control Center with the launch team. Now, each is going to provide a very unique experience today, starting first with Daryl, who has been closely monitoring the launch countdown for us.
Yeah, and welcome into Firing Room 1, a historic firing room here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here reporting what's happening as we lead up to countdown and liftoff of Artemis II. So far, looking pretty good. You see the rocket out there on the pad. It is launch day, and we just got that crew weather brief that you were talking about from Launch Director Charlie Blackwell Thompson to the crew. It looks like a countdown at this point is in good shape, and that's great news. Fueling continues to track well. We just reached all stages replenish. And while we're talking about the fueling, let's talk about that tanking. Pull up the tanking graphic if we could now. That will give us an indication of where we are with tanking, and I can just tell you, as you see from this board right here, we are all stages replenish. So all tanks on board the SLS, the 2 liquid hydrogen, lower stage and upper stage, and 2 liquid oxygen, lower stage and upper stage, are at 100%, and that's exactly where we want to be. This kicked off at 7:30 this morning with a go for cryo load, and here we are roughly about 5 hours later, and we're fully tanked and now in replenish. The amount of propellant on board, roughly 733,000 gallons. That's about an Olympic-sized pool and a half. Huge amount of propellant. It's all flowed in there. The great news there, no leaks, no issues, and we're looking good at this point. So let's talk weather now. The weather, while it is favorable overall, it's not totally clean, and that was hinted at earlier when we talked about the storms. There is, of course, some onshore flow. Currently, our overall attempt percentage stands at 80% chance of acceptable weather conditions at the time of liftoff, which is going to be within our launch window. That's tonight from 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time until 8:24 p.m. Eastern Time. Winds are good. The lightning risk is low. But scattered showers still remain possible around the Cape and including near the pad. So the expectation is that there'll be some more active weather coming our way, but we're expecting it to push to the west. So the watch item is really any isolated shower that could briefly move through the area and trigger a constraint, especially for flight through precipitation. Well, you're looking now inside the astronaut suit-up room, and of course we got the 4 astronauts there. They talked to Charlie Blackwell Thompson today, and you know, everything looks good there. We're tracking one minor NC issue at this point. We'll talk, it's a non-conformance. We'll talk about that a little bit later in our next hit, but for now, again, looking good. And of course, our administrator for NASA is here in the firing room. He checked in with the launch director, chatted with her for several minutes, and he's here in the firing room, which is a good positive sign, of course, for the day. That's it for the firing room. We'll send it back now to Megan and Nicole.
Daryl, thank you so much. Yeah, let's get back into the suit-up room here, where we now have a shot of all 4 astronauts, and it appears all of them are undergoing their suit leak checks. Can you talk to us about what that is, Nicole?
Sure, yeah, you can see, you know, as the suit expands, that we're going to pressurize those suits. So in the case that we need it, if we lose pressure in the capsule, those suits will protect the astronauts and keep them pressurized and keep them survivable. So these guys are going to hold their breath for about 10 seconds. You know, any movement in the suit could cause changes in the pressure, and so we want to get a really nice, precise, accurate measurement on the leak check. And so they'll hold their breath. You know, even just their heartbeat could potentially make some differences in those super sensitive sensors there. So you can see the red and blue valves there, the air in and air out, and it looks like Victor just had a good leak check.
Yeah, and actually they do 3 leak checks, again, just to get an average reading to say, hey, you know, we have confidence that these suits are holding the right pressure. As Nicole said, that tube that's going in, that's putting air into their suits, and then there was that gold instrument that you saw on their other side. That's how they can control how much pressure is being released in order to do these checks.
Yep, and they will do the leak checks here in the suit room, and then they'll do more actually in the capsule as well. They'll do another leak check. So we're going to make sure the suits are ready to go before we even step out the door, and then we'll check them with the entire system on the capsule once they get out to the rocket.
And you might also notice that some of the astronauts, while they're doing their suit leak checks, you might have seen Victor gave an okay sign. You might also see a thumbs up, and that's because concurrently, while they're doing these suit leak checks, they're also doing comm checks.
Yes, yeah, we talked about the comm cap earlier and the umbilical and how they plug in. So yeah, they're going to test the comm, they're going to test the suit, make sure everything. They're actually probably testing the cooling system as well right now. You know, they're going to plug into the portable cooling system and make sure that all of that is working. So like I said, we want to make sure that we've got 4 healthy suits before we go out.
Yeah, this suit, 3 layers, so obviously it can get hot.
Yes.
So one of the layers is a cooling undergarment, and basically they flow cold liquid through that undergarment to keep the astronauts cool and comfortable before liftoff today.
Yeah, it's like a onesie with a bunch of tubes running around it, and the water flows through there to cool you down.
All right, lots of information to share with you all today. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. All you have to do is send your questions our way by tagging @NASA Artemis, and we'll try to answer as many of your questions live. And we'll also have some questions for you throughout the broadcast, so we hope you can participate in those opportunities as well. Okay, as we continue to be inside the suit-up room here, why don't we learn a little bit about each of our crew members? Right now we are looking at pilot Victor Glover, but hopefully we can get a shot here of our commander, Reed Wiseman. Now, Reed Wiseman is a Baltimore native. He's been in space once before as flight engineer for Expedition 41 aboard the International Space Station from May through November 2014. During the 165-day mission, Reed and his crewmates completed, get this, more than 300 science experiments in areas like human physiology, medicine, physical science, earth science, and also astrophysics. They actually set a milestone for station science by completing a record 82 research hours in a single week. He also served as chief of NASA's astronaut office from December 2020 to November 2022, and Reed has 2 daughters.
Yeah, you know, I love, Reed is such a great leader. He was the chief of the astronaut office when they hired our class of astronauts. And so, you know, I think I have to publicly thank him for my job here today. But yeah, he's a family man, he's a good leader, and he's a great pick for the commander of this mission.
Yeah, I think, you know, in talking through some of his other accomplishments, obviously he has leadership qualities that makes him prepared for commander of Artemis II.
Yes, yes, he does. He's a well-experienced naval officer and now NASA astronaut.
And so now here we are, pilot Victor Glover. NASA selected the California native as an astronaut in 2013. At the time, he was actually serving as a legislative fellow in the United States Senate. His first trip to space was in November 2020 when he launched as pilot of NASA's SpaceX Crew 1 mission. That was the first operational mission of NASA's Commercial Crew program, which resumed launching American rockets from American soil to the International Space Station at the end of the shuttle program. Victor is a U.S. Navy captain and naval aviator who served as a test pilot, racking up more than 3,500 flight hours in more than 40 different aircraft. He and his wife, Deanna, have 4 children.
Yeah, 4 children, a lot of energy, but that checks, right? Because when I think of Victor Glover, I think of a lot of energy, smart guy who's always excited and ready to go. And there you go, he's smiling in the suit room this morning.
Oh yeah, he's a great guy. All of them are. This whole entire crew, they're just a good group of human beings, of leaders, of friends, family. You know, I have never heard anybody say anything bad about any of these 4. They're also well accomplished, and they're also deserving of this opportunity to return to the moon.
Yeah, and they're also humble, right? They're just standard humans going to the moon, but you would never know that when you talk to them in a normal conversation.
And so it looks like Christina here has completed her suit leak checks as well, her communication checks too.
Yep, they've already got her gloves off. They're getting ready to kind of hang out and relax a little bit, I think, before they walk out.
She is a mission specialist for this mission, native of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Was selected to the astronaut corps in 2013, so actually same class as Victor. She served as flight engineer on the International Space Station from March 2019 to February 2020. And during that time, Cook set a record for the longest single space flight by a woman with a total of 328 consecutive days in space. She also participated in the first ever all-female spacewalk. And before becoming an astronaut, Christina helped build space science instruments and led scientific field work in some of the most remote environments on the planet. Her hobbies include surfing, rock climbing, community service, yoga, travel, and photography. Again, so much. When does she find the time?
That's a great question. You know, one of the things I love about Christina is that she's broken records and she's achieved all these milestones. But one of the things that she talks about is, you know, she just wants people to set goals and go work hard and do something that's meaningful to you. And she really hopes that her records are broken as soon as possible. She does it for her family, and she'll talk about all of her nieces and nephews quite a bit. So just, again, another example of just a humble human who's got a great support system in her family and excited for the mission.
Yeah, she's always saying that she just wants the opportunity to push people farther, to push humanity farther, see what we can accomplish together. So, yeah. Again, all four of them say that. They're really in tune on what they think or what they feel like their role is in this mission.
Yeah, I think their legacy is going to be, you know, providing the shoulders for others to climb on.
And last but not least, first-time flyer, Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen will fly to the moon as a mission specialist on the Artemis II mission. The London, Ontario native was selected as an astronaut in 2009. After that, he worked as Capcom at NASA's Mission Control Center in Houston. Capcom stands for Capsule Communicator, and that's the sole direct voice communicating with astronauts in space. He also participated in training exercises such as living on the ocean floor off the coast of Florida to simulate deep space exploration for 7 days. In 2017, he became the first Canadian to lead a NASA astronaut class. He also enjoys getting out on a sailboat, rock climbing, and mountain biking. Jeremy and his wife, Catherine, have 3 children, and he actually got to hang out with them over the weekend. So the crew arrived here for launch at Kennedy Space Center on Friday, and then their family members arrived Saturday.
Yes, yeah. As long as their family can quarantine with them, then they will stay, you know, quarantined in Houston, and then they all fly down to Kennedy Space Center, and then you get to spend the last few days with your close family and friends. We actually do a behind-the-glass visit with some of those other maybe extended family members that couldn't quarantine with you. But yeah, it's a quaint time here once you get to Kennedy Space Center.
A great sign here, all 4 astronauts have removed their helmets. And that indicates again that all 4 have completed suit leak checks. And so, Nicole, what they're doing now is they have these pockets on their forearms. That's just somewhere where they can put personal items that they might want, right?
Yeah, just kind of stowage pockets. You know, there's always something that you might need or want while you're in the capsule, and then also last-minute personal items if you want to put a couple things in there. So everybody kind of has their own unique stash in their pockets.
And then another pocket has emergency equipment that they might need, right? Like a signaling mirror, things like that.
Right, yeah, the suit is basically all in one. You know, it's got the oxygen bottles there on their right legs. You'll see in a different shot, they've got pockets with survival gear in it, and that is to keep them safe. So if they had to egress the capsule, either from the launch pad or from the water, then they will have all of the survival gear with them. They'll have about 10 minutes of oxygen as well from that bottle so that they can get to safety quickly and safely.
We are now 5 hours, 3 minutes and counting from the opening of our 2-hour launch window, and we have our first questions from social media. Question here from X. So to be clear, this is not a mission to land, but to orbit the moon. Thank you, and thank our astronauts. Nicole.
Yeah, this is a great question. You know, I think it's important to highlight the mission of Artemis II, where we are going to go around the moon. We're going to see the far side of the moon. We're going to see parts of the far side of the moon that human eyes have never seen before. It's very similar to the Apollo 8 mission, right? We're also potentially going to be able to see the landing sites for the future Artemis missions and kind of provide the overall context of those landing sites amongst the entire moon site there. So it's an exciting mission. We'll get to learn a ton about you know, there's so much science that's going to be on this mission as well, right? Where they're going to do some science experiments on humans, learn about the stress of the environment, and we're going to learn about the radiation environment. We're going to learn about the suits as well. We've got some technology demonstrations that are going to happen. So there's a lot going on this mission as we fly around the moon and come back.
Mm-hmm. We always say it's about increments, right? Like we're making that next giant leap to Mars, but in order to do that safely and to do that thoroughly, incremental steps.
Exactly. And, you know, like we said, this is the first time that we've put crew on this rocket. And so actually before we even head to the moon, right, we're going to stay close to the Earth, and we're going to check out all of the systems on Orion, make sure that it can handle 4 humans, make sure it can handle people sleeping, people exercising, you know, all of the environmental control systems are working. So we want to make sure that the capsule is safe for the crew before we send them, you know, almost 250,000 miles away.
Yeah, that was a great question. And we actually have another one that we'll pull up on screen here. Another question from X. How long will it take them to reach the moon, and how long will the entire mission last?
Another great question, right? So they're going to do a couple orbits around the Earth. They'll do a perigee and an apogee raise burn. What that means is that they're going to accelerate to get further away from the Earth, and they'll get into a really highly elliptical orbit first. And then once they get into the translunar injection, so they're actually on a free return trajectory, which means we're going to accelerate them, and then they're going to escape Earth's gravity, and then just based on orbital mechanics, they'll be able to come home without having to do another burn or acceleration. So it'll take about 4 days once they leave Earth's gravity to get to the moon. They'll fly around the moon, about 4 days back, and then land. So overall, about a 10-day mission.
Exactly. Yeah, these are really great questions, guys. We know that, again, we are sharing a lot of information today, so please do not hesitate to reach out. Obviously, Nicole, very smart here, and we're happy to answer any of your questions. Again, tag @NASA Artemis wherever you're watching this coverage. And now we actually have a question for you. Who would you take with you on a trip around the moon? Would it be your bestie? Would it be a pet, family member, or a seasoned astronaut? Think about that one. I know.
I like that.
I absolutely know what I would say. I think it would make my husband upset, but I have my answer here. But we'd love for you to go to NASA's Instagram or Twitch accounts to vote. Again, who would you take to the moon with you? Bestie, pet, family, or seasoned astronaut? Try to go vote, and then we will share your answers soon. Again, husband is not gonna like my answer. And we're not the only ones with questions today. We will also hear from celebrities during our launch coverage. See what Stanley Tucci, Scarlett Johansson, and others want to know about NASA's Artemis II test flight. Plus the surprise of a lifetime as kids marveled at the rocket and spacecraft rolling to the launch pad. Look at those cute faces there. Oh, I love that. Love those suits. And we'll show you how the astronauts will eat, sleep, and go to the bathroom while in space. Keep in mind, the Orion spacecraft is about the size of a 6-person tent.
Yeah, not super big, but, you know, it's 10 days with your 3 best friends, so I think it's manageable for sure. But, you know, every ounce counts when you're trying to get to the moon.
And as we continue to look into the suit-up room here, a fist pump for some of the folks in the crowd there by Victor. Why don't we take a look around the center here? We know that there are some folks who are already getting ready to check out the team here as they drive across KSC to their launch pad. Look at that. Oh, that's so awesome.
That's a great crowd.
They're waiting there in front of the vehicle assembly building. So actually, they're just down the road from us. This is a good crowd, as Nicole said. Oh, there they are. They just got their cue. Oh, now? Let me wave now.
Oh, yeah, they are excited.
That's amazing. So all of these folks, content creators that are getting behind-the-scenes access as part of NASA's NASA social experience here. So as you can see, very excited. The crew will get into their convoy and drive past them here pretty shortly.
Yeah, what an amazing way to share the Artemis story, right? By inviting these social media experts out to share the story as they drive by.
All right, again, let's take a look at the clock. 4 hours, 58 minutes and counting from the opening of today's 2-hour launch window. So why don't we check back in with Daryl with the launch team.
Megan and Nicole, and inside Fire Room 1, I'm listening to Launch Director Charlie Blackwell Thompson greet the Ascent crew who just came on console over there at Johnson Space Center. So good to have the mission control team jumping on with us. So far, the launch team here in the firing room has had a really good morning. Really smooth tanking that kicked off at 7:30 a.m. this morning. They got to all stages replenish just before 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, and it was an incredibly smooth tanking. That's great as we look here watching the crew and also with an eye on the rocket. Weather, of course, we've talked a little bit about that. It's favorable overall, 80% go for our 2-hour window between 6:24 p.m. and 8:24 p.m. We don't have an exact T0 right now because that's going to come to us closer when we get closer to launch, roughly about 20 minutes before liftoff. But it's going to be within that window and towards the beginning, provided everything continues to go smoothly along the timeline. And so far, that's been the case. I mentioned that there was a small issue in my previous live hit. That actually was incorrect. There was no issue. I've gotten the good data now that I'm on the headset and listening into the loops. Engineers, avionics engineers, are keeping an eye on a display unit inside Orion that's just running a little cooler than normal. It's not going out of limit. It's actually completely fine. But they just were noting the trend and reported that to the NASA test director. So they'll keep their eyes on that. But again, there was no LCC violation. And once they get the cover off Orion out there that's protecting it from the rain, they expect the temperatures inside the Orion crew capsule to stabilize. And with that, we'll send it back to the host desk with Megan and Nicole.
Thank you so much, Daryl. Now, Daryl is inside Firing Room 1 in the Launch Control Center, or LCC, as you might hear it referred to, which was built in 1967 to support Apollo missions. In fact, Apollo 11, the mission that landed on the moon in 1969, that was called from the exact same firing room. NASA then upgraded the LCC to support shuttle missions, and now Artemis. You can see there a shot from when we supported shuttle. Now with Artemis, the primary launch team for today is in Firing Room 1, but there is actually support staff in Firing Room 2 as well. And together they will propel this ambitious test flight off Earth.
We're going back to the moon because it's the next step in our journey to Mars. We need to go explore the moon. There's vast regions of unexplored areas with the coldest, darkest places in our solar system. This is a test mission, and when we get off the planet, we might come right back home. We might spend 3 or 4 days around Earth. We might go to the moon. That's where we want to go, but it is a test mission, and we are ready for every scenario as we ride this amazing space launch system in the Orion spacecraft.
But another reason we're going back to the moon is to fulfill NASA's mission, which is to explore the unknown in air and space, to innovate for the benefit of humanity, and to inspire the world through discovery. And when we succeed and when we accomplish the things that we set out to accomplish, that inspiration not only can set up new things to happen, but it also is a reminder in tough times that we're capable of doing great things when we work together.
The thing I love about the moon is that it's not just a beacon for exploration and this platform of possibilities for incredible missions like this, but it has benefits. That's actually why we're racing towards it. Those benefits are really wide in nature. You have everything from innovation, technology development, not only for future missions going deeper into the solar system, but technologies that come back to Earth. You have inspiration, a whole generation of people starting this pipeline of STEM workers and manufacturers and operators that are excited to see what you can do when you work hard and you come together as a team.
When I think about the 4 of us flying around the far side of the moon, seeing that Earth rise, taking images and video and sending them back
to you. The feeling that I have inside is hope. We know that Artemis II is not the solution for humanity on planet Earth, but it is a contribution in the positive column. We hope that just for a moment that people will pause and say, wow, it's extraordinary when you look back upon the Earth with over 8 billion people, and you see this concrete example of what humanity can do, this extraordinary thing when we set big goals and we work together to achieve them.
Now, Kennedy's launch control team takes us to liftoff, but then mission control at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston takes over. That's where we have our Gary Jordan embedded with that team. Hey, Gary.
Hey, Megan and Nicole, it's great to be joining you from here in Houston, Texas. I'm in NASA's Mission Control Center, where the Artemis II Ascent flight control teams, led by Flight Director Judd Freeling, recently started their shift to monitor the Orion spacecraft integrity, the Space Launch System, and the crew to make sure all criteria is met to commit to today's launch and the mission ahead. The team you see here in this room today has been training extensively to prepare for the highly dynamic phase of flight that begins shortly after engine ignition. Teams here will be monitoring the flight of the Space Launch System, Orion, and of course the Artemis II crew on board as they make their way from the Kennedy Space Center into Earth orbit. The lead console positions will be in this room, called the White Flight Control Room, a room which traces its legacy to the Space Shuttle program, with the first shift supporting STS-70 in 1995, more than 30 years ago. Each console represents an expert in a particular discipline, whether it be communications, propulsion, crew health, life support systems, or trajectory. And each of these individuals has a support team in other rooms, each ensuring that no data point is left unchecked, no procedure is missed, and combining efforts as one Artemis team to ensure crew safety and mission success. After liftoff, Mission Control Houston will be staffed around the clock over the next 10 days until the spacecraft is safed for the recovery teams and the crew is extracted from integrity and brought aboard the recovery vessel. The roar of a powerful Space Launch System liftoff is just the beginning. The mission is, of course, a test mission, and the first with humans on board Orion and in deep space. The crew's job is to put the systems and capabilities of Orion to the test, taking us closer to a sustained presence on the lunar surface. It's great to see the crew gathered around the table. Megan, with that, we'll toss it back to you as we continue to monitor from here in Mission Control Houston. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Gary. Yes, a pre-flight tradition that we have seen with our crewed flights and our astronauts, the card game, Nicole.
Yeah, you know, this is a fun time for the crew. Kind of relax a little bit, play a card game with the chief. You can see Scott Tingle there is the dealer today. Looks like they're playing high card wins. So Victor won, he's out, now Jeremy's out. You know, there are two schools of thought on this game. Either you want to get rid of all your bad luck or go out on a high note. So it looks like the crew chose we're going out on a high note. And, you know, I think one of my favorite parts when I talked to Reed about this is he was just excited to play a game with his old boss from Naval Test Pilot School. So once again, his boss today.
Yeah, and I love this part of the tradition because this is when, again, you usually see them like, yeah, laughing, but very focused still. But when they get to this table, laughs, high fives, smiles, just really a brief moment of levity in what can be and will be a very long day for them.
Yes, you know, it's a long day. There's a lot of preparation that goes in today, and so they're just, I think, at least for us, it was a nice brief moment of some relaxation, a couple laughs, you know, a moment to take a few deep breaths and reflect on the mission ahead, and then, you know, get some high fives as well.
And so with their bad luck dispelled, some good luck from Scott Tingle, let it seem like there, right?
Yes, definitely. It's actually a really fun tradition. You know, I think that card game is more steeped in tradition than anything else. Every crew has played that same card game.
As you said, Nicole, the primary reason for why they're there to suit up, to do communications checks, to do pressure checks all done. And now it seems like Reed had some words for the team in that room.
Yeah, you know, this day can't happen without thousands of people, right? And so the suit room is a great example of that. You've got all of the suit techs, and you've got your support team there, everyone who has made this day possible. You know, they've been working with the suit team for years at this point, getting ready.
So some fist bumps to the group. Again, the suit team are the folks dressed up in those white very snazzy outfits. Special outfits that we can talk a little bit more about later, but each crew member was assigned their own suit technician. So as you said, working very closely with the same person to make sure that the crew felt comfortable and ready in these suits as they lift off from Kennedy Space Center.
Right, and each suit is slightly different, each person is slightly different, and so these suit techs know each individual super well. They know exactly how they like to get into the suit, exactly where things might get caught, or small adjustments that might need to be made. So they know their suit techs well, and their suit techs know them very well.
And so as we take a couple of pictures here, we really hope that you are learning a lot about the suits and the process of checking them out for a mission. But imagine the opportunity to get a hands-on demonstration from people who helped design these suits. Take a look.
Does anyone want to try on one of the gloves? I love showing the kids the suit. I love how excited they get about space. Oh!
So that would be...
It just goes in there? We got to bring some stuff for them to actually put their hands in, and some of them were very excited because they want to be astronauts when they grow up.
I would love to be an astronaut. That would be incredible.
I'd like to be like an engineer that like maybe designs the suits.
Whether it's the call, the orange color, every aspect has an important function for our astronauts in space.
It's going to be amazing seeing astronauts up close to the moon again.
And that was a special event at Johnson Space Center. What we just saw there, obviously a big part of why this mission is so important to NASA, really just an opportunity to inspire everyone, especially kids, right, Nicole, to dream big and be curious.
Oh man, yeah, the kids are so important, right? I love talking to kids. They are the future of spaceflight. They are the Artemis generation. And, if we could just inspire even one of them to go on to be a scientist or an engineer or maybe even astronaut someday, that's a win.
And now let's turn our focus to the rocket for a little bit. Powering liftoff will be, again, NASA's Space Launch System rocket right behind us. And to learn more about SLS, let's go to Megan Carter, who's at Kennedy Space Center's Visitor Complex at an exhibit dedicated to Artemis and the future of spaceflight.
That's right, Megan. I am so excited to be over here at the Visitor Center, but not just because of launch. I get to introduce you to the moon board. This is obviously a very complex mission, lots of moving parts and pieces. So the moon board is going to allow me to break some of those things down for you just a little bit more in depth, starting with that SLS rocket. Now, the SLS, or the Space Launch System, very big, very powerful. It is going to be producing 8.8 million pounds of thrust at launch. And like I mentioned, very large, as you can see here, going to stand about 322 feet tall with Orion there on top, just a little bit taller than the Statue of Liberty. Now, there are many components that make up this rocket, so I'm going to point out just a handful that you're going to hear about a lot throughout this broadcast, starting with our boosters. These two twin solid rocket boosters are going to be very powerful. They are going to burn for the first 2.5 minutes of flight, and each one is going to stand 17 stories tall. They weigh in at about 1.6 million pounds each. Now, I am going to jump back out and I'm going to show you a little bit about our core stage. That's going to be known as the backbone, essentially, of our rocket, and it is made up of around 5 components, starting with this engine section down here. This engine section is where our 2 propellants are going to be funneled down through our pipelines, and they are going to be mixed at 2 different temperatures, very complex processing, and they are then going to go on to feed that fuel to our 4 very powerful RS-25 engines. These are going to produce about 500,000 pounds of thrust each at launch, and they will burn for 8 minutes. All right, now jumping up here, we are going to take a look, because I just mentioned those propellants. Obviously, we do need fuel, and that is why we have around 535,000 gallons of that liquid hydrogen. That's approximately about the same amount that you could fill an Olympic-sized pool, just to give you an idea. And then we're also going to have that liquid oxygen, and like I mentioned, there's going to be about 200,000 100,000 gallons for that one. And they are going to be funneled down through those lines that you see here on the side. All right, jumping up real quick, this is going to be our upper stage. That is where our core avionics are going to be stored, essentially the brains of the spacecraft. And then jumping out super quick, let's see if we can zoom in here, and we can. Those propellants I talked about are going to be stored at cryogenic temperatures. That means thousands of degrees below Fahrenheit, so they have to be kept very cold. And that, all those bumps and ridges there that you see, those are actually going to be an insulation spray that's going to help keep that rocket nice and cool, keep the propellants ready to go, and get us set up for success. Now, obviously, that was a very quick overview of our rocket. I have so much more to show you here on our moon board, but for now, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Megan.
Thank you, Megan. A very impressive demo of the moon board, but also an impressive system, obviously. She mentioned 4 RS-25 engines on the core stage, and actually we have one right behind us here, used during the shuttle program, and I got to get a closer look at it with Space Launch Systems Engines Deputy Manager Philip Benefield.
Okay, so Philip, in terms of size, shape, and function, what we see here behind us, exactly what we see on the pad.
Absolutely, Megan, absolutely. So this is the RS-25 engine.
Impressive.
We have 4 of these on the bottom of the SLS rocket to propel the SLS rocket in Orion into low Earth orbit.
And we've been seeing views of the pad throughout this broadcast, but you mostly only see the bell here. What's happening over here?
Right, so this is generally what we call the power head section of the engine. So the purpose here is that it takes in the propellants from the vehicle tanks, the liquid oxygen in minus 297 degrees, super cold stuff. The liquid hydrogen even colder, minus 423 Fahrenheit. There's 4 turbo pumps on the engine that pressurize that propellant up to 9,000 psi in areas. It is all directed into the main combustion chamber where it is burned into hot gas that then is accelerated out the nozzle to produce thrust.
When you say hot gas, what are we talking about?
We're talking 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit gas.
Wow, so we're talking really cold as liquids coming in-to the combustion chamber, and then it comes out as really, really hot gas. How do you design, how do you engineer something to control both extremes?
Absolutely, it's very technically challenging. One of the main things here with the nozzle is that since you have the 6,000 degree Fahrenheit gas coming out, you have to cool that nozzle so it doesn't melt. And so the way the nozzle is constructed with these 1,080 coolant tubes. And so each of these coolant tubes flows a small amount of hydrogen. It keeps it cold, and so it doesn't melt during operation.
Wow. I mean, all of the science that you're talking about, it is truly amazing that you guys designed this for shuttle, and yet you've reconfigured it, retooled it to be able to now support Artemis. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's really amazing, the fact that we were able to use the heritage hardware on the Space Launch System. The engine itself, developed through the Space Shuttle program, many upgrades to make it more reliable and improve the thrust as well.
Perfect. Philip, thank you so much. I can't wait to see all 4 function.
Same here. Thanks, Megan. Enjoyed it.
And again, another idea and way that we are learning from what we've built upon and figured out all into this moment.
Yes, with so much more thrust and capability, like we said, we learn all those lessons from previous missions, and we get to involve them here today.
And here we are, the closeout crew in the White Room, getting ready for the astronauts who have just left crew suit up and are now walking down a hallway to greet some family and friends downstairs. Commander Reed Weissman, pilot Victor Glover, mission specialist Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen. Looking excited, ready. Now in that elevator to take them 3 floors down. Thumbs up, one more photo, one more photo. Oh, nope, a couple more people in that elevator. Those are important folks. They're going with them to the pad.
Yeah, this is a fun elevator ride.
Yeah.
And you know, actually you couldn't see them because they're off camera, but the support crew that's actually in crew quarters with us is right there waving goodbye and saying goodbye to you. So it's a really special moment to say thank you and say goodbye to the support crew at crew quarters.
That's amazing. And so again, they will ride down 3 floors. And then soon we'll walk out the doors that you see underneath the banner there that says their names. These doors, the same doors that astronauts who have launched from Kennedy Space Center have walked out of since the Apollo program.
Yes, and you can see another tradition is putting your patch on that archway as well. So I'm sure they did that over the last couple days.
They did. It's actually it's so hard to see because there's so many of them, which is also great, but it's on the door frame on the right-hand side, the very, very bottom.
Awesome.
Great crowd here. A shot now of everyone who is waiting to greet the crew as they walk out of the operations and checkout building here at Kennedy Space Center and will board their ride to the launch pad.
Yeah, this is a really great shot, right? Because you get to see a little bit of what goes on there. So you've got the close family that were in quarantine with them up close. They get to wave goodbye one last time. You've got a little bit of media in the background, and then you've got some NASA employees and a lot of the program managers off to the side as well to wave goodbye one last time and wish them luck.
Yeah, it's a really nice moment. Again, they have had some quality time with family, but this is their final opportunity to say, see ya in 10 days.
Yep, the last wave.
And so there are different pens of people, again, as Nicole was alluding to, specific to the quarantine rules that you followed in order to be able to have that access, have that closeness with the crew. And then on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, the Astrovan. And that is going to be the crew's ride out to the launch pad. This modified Airstream motorhome can seat up to 8 people inside. It has a TV and sound system, and we know they plan to watch a video during their trip out, right, Nicole?
Yes. So I think Top Gun is on the menu,
yes.
And then also Point Break, because Christina surfs. So I think they've got a pretty decent entertainment planned. So
I love that. It gets them in the headspace, the right headspace, to really just enjoy the ride to space. NASA's history with Airstream dates back to the 60s when the company created a crew quarantine vehicle for when astronauts returned from the moon. This picture here, President Nixon talking to the Apollo 11 astronauts inside said quarantine vehicle. Then during the shuttle program, Airstream created the first generation Astrovan, a 27-foot motorhome that transported astronauts across KSC to their launch pad. And again, that is what we're going to see today. A very similar picture. Again, the orange suits, the Astrovan, very reminiscent of what we have done before and how we got to where we are now.
Yeah, and it's a pretty cool ride. You get about 20 minutes to get out to the launch pad and watch a movie, listen to some music. It's kind of an interesting, and then along the whole way here at KSC, all of the employees from Kennedy Space Center come out. You can see in the background of the shot you're looking at right now, all of those employees and everybody lining the streets, waving and wishing them luck.
I think this is an emotional moment for a lot of people because this is the last time where a lot of people will be with the crew, because once they get to the pad, there's only a handful of folks with them before launch.
Yeah, definitely. This can be emotional for the crew, can be emotional for the families, of course. I mean, I got to wave goodbye one last time to my sister, and when we walked out those doors, and yeah, it's surreal. It starts to become much more real the closer and closer you get to the launch pad.
20 seconds now from when we expect the crew to walk out those doors. It must be really hard for them to patiently wait for these very specific milestones.
You've got a whole group back there that's telling jokes and keeping it light. So.
And here they are, NASA's Artemis II crew. Commander Reed Weissman, pilot Victor Glover, and mission specialist Christina Cook and Jeremy Hansen taking their first steps outside for their historic test flight. To a wonderful applause from the crowd. They're looking really excited.
Some
and
big
really
smiles.
Ready.
I love that.
It's a great day for us. It's a great day for this team.
A few words from Reed. Great day for us, the team, he said. Thumbs up, more thumbs up. Of course, a lot of pictures. We hear some camera shutter clicks back there. I love the energy of this crowd. Let's go. And so now the crew walking over to each of their pens. The first people closest to them, of course, their family members who got to quarantine with them, correct?
Yes. Yeah, so the ones that are close and waving, those are the immediate family, so spouses, partners, kids.
And we're trying to give them some privacy so that they can have their conversations with their family members. Christina there, she has her husband. Victor has 4 daughters and his wife, they're there. Reed, his 2 daughters are there. And then Jeremy, his wife, 2 daughters and a son. You know, when you were standing in their shoes, Nicole, when you flew for Crew 10, what were you kind of talking about? Like, did you really think about this moment and what you might want to say?
You know, they've all already done their real goodbyes, you know, in person. And so this is more just kind of, again, that last chance to wave, last chance to get one smile. You know, you see Christina there smiling. So this felt much less heavy and just, you know, waving and maybe cracking a joke or something, saying hi. So this was a really, really great moment for our crew.
Reed's 2 daughters there. Reed spoke about when he told them that he was selected to be the Artemis II commander. And he said he was worried. He's a single dad, didn't know how they would react. And actually, he said he was overwhelmed by their support. He woke up the next morning with cupcakes baked by one of the daughters, moon cupcakes.
Yes, I love this story. Moon cupcakes the next morning. Like, how awesome is that, right? Everybody needs their support system, and clearly he has that in his daughters.
Christina said she took a bike ride with her husband and wanted to tell him when the moon rose, but that it was too foggy. But she said he was still very excited and happy for her.
Yeah, the moon's still out there.
A close-up now of, again, Commander Reed Wiseman and Mission Specialist Christina Cook. To the right of your screen, as we pan left, we have pilot Victor Glover. Victor told his wife, and they told their 4 kids together, and he said that one of them just started yelling, "Let's go!"
Yes, I love that. Again, the support from the family is awesome.
And Jeremy said his wife and 3 children, super excited. He felt very supported. You know, he did have that tough conversation, obviously, of talking about the realities of this being a test flight, but he said they were super supportive. And now as he walks away, some kisses from Victor Glover to his family, hearts to Christina. Jeremy being a gentleman, pausing so that Christina can take a nice photo without him. Hearts too from Reed there. Hearing Victor saying, "Love you guys." Saying that to some of his crew members there. Woody. Some more applause from the group.
A quick wave to some of the NASA program managers, and I think Norm Knight's out there, the FOD Flight Operations Director.
You heard Reed there saying, "Thank you guys," as the crowd picks up again with their applause, and the 4 of them step into their Astrovan. Looking at the clock, very on schedule right now. Again, according to the very detailed timeline of launch today, they are expected to drive off in about 20 seconds.
So far, we're marching toward the launch smoothly.
Do you think they're queuing up the video?
Definitely.
And that's why they haven't left yet? They're like, we can't go without
Gotta get
our
your
point
snacks and movie
break.
ready.
And yeah. Where's the popcorn? Again, good on the timeline. Of course, they do have these very specific milestones, but this is not one that has to be completely stuck to the second and the minute.
Yeah, we will make up that time easily.
They will get a full security escorted ride out to the launch pad. It's a quick trip, 15, 20 minutes. The closeout crew at the pad, still just getting everything ready for their arrival. Configuring Orion, right, Nicole?
Yes, so they're probably laying out the seat restraints and getting all of the umbilicals set and ready to go so that when the crew gets there, they can ingress and start getting strapped in and connected to the capsule.
And in our smaller box there, we have a shot of our administrator, Jared Isaacman, bouncing around quite a lot today. Was in the firing room right after the crew weather brief, saying to the crew that they are good for them to start suiting up, and now here to wish them well as they drive out to the pad.
Yes, he's so invested in this mission. I love it. You know, he's been an active participant today, and exciting to see him there at the walkout. So in the van, they're probably getting hooked up to the portable cooling systems as well. So that's probably, that would be my guess on the slight delay here, making sure everybody's situated, connected to cooling, and ready to go before they take off.
Right, because the orange boxes, we didn't talk about it when we were in the suit up room, but if anybody noticed, there are these orange boxes, and that's what provides the cooling to those thermal garments. And so those boxes have been staged inside of the Astrovan so that once they got there, they can connect up again so that they're cool and comfortable on the way out.
Right, so they were off cooling from the walkout, you know, said hello to their families in the 80-degree weather here in Florida today. So it can get really warm in the suit quickly if you're not careful. So we want to make sure everybody's comfortable before we drive off.
And then when they get to the pad, of course, and strapped into Orion, then they don't have any need for those cooling boxes anymore. They will get that cooling through Orion, through the different lines and umbilicals that they'll be connecting to there.
Yep, that's exactly right. The Orion capsule and its environmental control system will take over once they're connected to the umbilical.
And so when we were watching them get into the elevator, I said, oh, there's a couple more people going in there. And they were, again, those folks in the white suits that we saw. Again, suit technicians.
Yep. And there they go.
And off they go. Reed, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy now on their way to launch pad 39B, where they will fly to the moon, something no human has done in over 50 years. They may also set a new record as the farthest humans have ever been from Earth, a record set by the Apollo 13 crew almost 56 years ago today. We still hear cheers as they drive away from the operations and checkout building here at Kennedy Space Center. Now, while the crew make their way to the pad, let's get to know each of them even better. First, Commander Reed Wiseman.
The moon, to me, it's the thing that connects me together with all the other humans in my life. I remember being a little kid lying in bed at night and just looking out at the moon in whatever phase it was in, and I was thinking, man, my friends that live like 20 miles away, they can probably look out and see that same exact moon. And then when I was in the Navy and I would look out at the moon and I'd be halfway around the planet, I would think, man, my brother can see that moon where he is, and he's halfway around the planet from where I am. To me, it's a connection of life on Earth. We can all look up and see that moon, and it's always changing. The moon is never the same 2 days in a row. I love that. My name is Reed Wiseman. I'm the commander of NASA's Artemis II mission around the moon. I grew up in a little town just north of Baltimore, Maryland, about 20 miles north of the city. There was a National Guard base nearby my house, and there were A-10 aircraft that would fly over every now and then. I just would look up at them and be like, man, I want to be up there. I want to go do that. And then my brother went to the Naval Academy, and I would go every year and watch the Blue Angels fly during commencement, and that just started to grow and grow and grow. For a while, I wanted to join the Air Force, and then I realized Navy flies as well, and they fly from ships in the middle of the ocean, and that was it. Like, done deal for me. That is exactly what I wanted to do for my career. Flying is freedom to me, especially when you're in a jet aircraft coming off of an aircraft carrier in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Nearest land is over 1,500 miles away. So when you come off of that aircraft carrier, you are truly just alone with yourself out there. It is a magical experience to be out there all by yourself in an aircraft over the Pacific. Just it's free. I think anybody who accomplishes something that they set their mind out to, there's no one thing that does it for them. It's a combination of everything. I mean, the way my parents raised me, the way my brother and I, the way our relationship developed over time, my friends, being in the marching band, going to college, setting my own course, learning how to live on my own, being mentored along the way, being, kept on the path to success, but being given the freedom to, make excursions and fail every now and then and regroup and carry on. I think all those things come together in the end to get you where you are. I've had to overcome, I'm a human being. I've had to overcome a lot of fears. I'm pretty scared of heights. I joked about that on the International Space Station, but it turns out I'm only scared like at the edge of a building. When you're up on the International Space Station, even though you're 250 miles up, I never had that feeling of falling or that I was, at risk up there. I just kind of loved the feeling of floating and looking down at Earth. There have been challenges all throughout my life. By far, the biggest challenge was losing my wife in 2020 to cancer and now raising two daughters who are grown up now, but that's been the biggest challenge by far I've ever had to face. It is not easy. Being an only parent, trying to work a full-time job, and raising two kids is something that I think about every single day. I'm very proud of the work I've done. I haven't always done it well, but I've always shown up and tried as hard as I possibly can.
And now Artemis II pilot Victor Glover and his journey to this history-making moment.
I do wonder what it's going to be like when we are really far from Earth and can see it. The sensation of being so far away from everything that you know. I had that sensation on the space station the first time I got to sit in the cupola for a really long time. So I can only imagine what that's going to be like from 200,000 plus miles away. My name is Victor Glover, and I'm the pilot for NASA's Artemis II mission around the moon. When I was in 4th grade, I was 10 years old, and that's when the Challenger accident happened. And it helped me understand how the general public felt about the astronaut corps, right? Like, these are the people that we want to be, and that just gave me an easy thing to strive toward. The biggest fear that I've had to overcome in my life is doubting myself. Going to college when no one in my family had gone to college was a huge risk. I had more confidence in my athletic ability than in my academic abilities. I could play football with those college students that I saw on TV, but my classmates that I saw in the lab and around the University Union, I didn't know if I had what they had. I think addressing that self-doubt was a part of, swinging for the fence and trying to go get an engineering degree, not just go to college, but get an engineering degree and then go do something challenging and technical like flying. Apollo is known for sending humans to the moon. Artemis has an opportunity to continue the Apollo story, but I actually think it's important for this story to stand on its own. Artemis is a new program, and we're trying to do new things. And it's great to compare and contrast. When you look at our spaceship, you can see parts that were designed, built, and integrated in another country. When you look at our crew, you see that our crew is international. There are also men and women. And I just think that comparing and contrasting makes the story even richer. The piloting role specifically, I will have an hour and a half or so where I get to fly the spacecraft by hand. We haven't flown that many spaceships. And so the ability to fly one actually in space on a test mission is just a really unique opportunity. I can't tell you how I'm going to feel when we fly by the moon and see the moon up close and the Earth from 250,000 miles away, but I don't use the word excited because I'm focused. What we do, this is very serious and it's very risky, and we are all intimately familiar with that risk. And so if we go out there and we're successful and we can pass that baton on to Artemis III, that's something to really be excited about.
Great to hear from Reed and Victor in their own words about how they feel about this mission and their role in it as the convoy turns this corner here onto the road where the vehicle assembly building is and where the group that we showed you earlier today, ready with their flags. Wow, that group has expanded exponentially. Yes, this is great.
So many people.
Flags. Oh my gosh, I love it. Oh, this must feel so special to the crew to see all of these people here to wish them well.
Yes, this is heartwarming. Look at how many people there are. Everyone is so excited about this mission.
Signs, people have made signs. I feel like the Astrovan has slowed down a little bit, you know, to really take in the moment.
Wow.
That's amazing there. Again, crowds continue going as we are now passing the historic vehicle assembly building. This is where the Space Launch System rocket was assembled and stacked with Orion. Its history, of course, goes back to the Apollo days, but today it is home to the Artemis missions to the moon and beyond. Gosh, still people lining the route. Yep.